There's one topic that just refuses to go away when people talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, and it has everything to do with a group that could completely change the outlook of this season. No matter what happened over the second half of last year, no matter how much continuity this team has finally built, the national conversation still sounds exactly the same. The offensive line continues to be viewed as a question mark, and that perception may end up becoming the biggest motivation this group could possibly ask for. Before we dive in, if you're as excited for Bengals football as we are, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Training camp is getting closer every single day, and we're going to be covering every important development, every roster battle, and every major storyline throughout the season. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's get to what really matters. One of the most overlooked storylines heading into training camp isn't about flashy statistics or off-season headlines. It's about something much simpler, but potentially much more important. For the first time since Joe Burrow became the Bengals franchise quarterback, Cincinnati is bringing back all 5 projected starting offensive linemen. That kind of continuity matters. It matters because offensive line play isn't just about individual talent. It's about communication. It's about chemistry. It's about understanding exactly how the player next to you reacts in every situation. It's about hundreds of snaps together, creating trust that simply can't be built overnight. And yet, despite having that continuity for the first time during the Burrow era, this offensive line still isn't getting much attention nationally. Recently, position rankings from league executives, scouts, and coaches once again left Bengals offensive linemen largely out of the conversation. Was it surprising? Not really. If you were expecting players like Orlando Brown Jr., Ted Karras, Dylan Fairchild, Dalton Risner, or Amarius Mims to suddenly dominate national rankings, that probably wasn't realistic. There are a lot of outstanding offensive linemen across the NFL, especially at tackle, and earning recognition takes time. Still, one thing stood out. Not even Amarius Mims received meaningful recognition. That's not necessarily disrespect. It's opportunity. Sometimes the biggest advantage a player can have is entering a season with something to prove. Imagine being in Mims's position. You know what you're capable of. The coaching staff believes in you. Your teammates believe in you. Inside the building, expectations continue to grow. But outside the organization, people are still waiting. They're still skeptical. They're still saying, "Let's see it first." That can become powerful motivation. Instead of complaining about rankings or arguing over who deserved votes, the better mindset is simple. Go prove everyone wrong. Go make it impossible for people to ignore your name next year. That's exactly the type of season Cincinnati hopes Mims is ready to deliver. Because if he takes another significant step forward, this offensive line immediately starts looking very different. Not just good. Potentially one of the strongest groups Joe Burrow has played behind. But changing perception isn't easy. That's one of the biggest themes surrounding this unit. Perception and reality aren't always the same thing. For many fans around the country, the Bengals' offensive line is still viewed through the lens of previous seasons. Whenever someone mentions Cincinnati, the first criticism usually sounds familiar. The offensive line still isn't good enough. The offensive line is still the weakness. The offensive line is why everything goes wrong. Those opinions don't disappear overnight, even if the play on the field improves, even if the chemistry improves, even if individual players continue developing. Changing a reputation often takes much longer than improving actual performance. That's why this season feels so important. Because the Bengals have a chance to completely rewrite that narrative. Last season, many people immediately connected Joe Burrow's injury to the offensive line. From a distance, that's the easy conclusion. But football is rarely that simple. When people only look at headlines or final results, context often disappears. That's why broad national conversations don't always match what actually happened on individual plays. The perception became part of the story. And once that perception takes hold, it tends to stay there until overwhelming evidence forces people to change their minds. That's exactly the challenge facing Cincinnati's offensive front entering training camp. Not just playing well enough that nobody can continue using old narratives. If you're Orlando Brown Jr., this season represents a tremendous opportunity. This is a chance to remind everyone exactly why you've been respected throughout your career. Injuries made the first couple of seasons more difficult than anyone wanted. But last season, he stayed on the field and delivered solid football. Now comes the next challenge. Taking another step. Returning to Pro Bowl-level play. Showing consistency from start to finish. If that happens, the conversation surrounding Orlando Brown Jr. could look completely different by the end of the year. Then there's Ted Karras. He may not always receive national headlines, but his steady presence continues to be one of the most valuable parts of this offensive line. Year after year, he simply goes about his business. Leadership, communication, consistency. Those qualities often don't generate highlight reels, but they matter every Sunday. And as another season approaches, there's another opportunity waiting. Continue leading one of the league's top offenses. Continue proving that steady, reliable football still has tremendous value. Whether that eventually leads to another contract in Cincinnati or something else down the road isn't the immediate focus. The focus is helping this offense perform at the highest level possible. Then comes one of the younger players drawing increasing attention. Dylan Fairchild. His rookie season exceeded expectations in several ways. As a third-round selection, expectations naturally come with patience. Development usually takes time for young offensive linemen, but Fairchild continued getting better as the season progressed. Even while dealing with injuries during portions of the year, he kept improving instead of allowing those setbacks to derail his development. That's significant. Many rookies struggle simply because injuries interrupt valuable learning time. That wasn't the case here. Instead, Fairchild continued building experience, continued developing confidence, and continued showing reasons for optimism moving forward. Now comes year two. And year two often becomes the biggest jump in a young player's career. The expectations naturally rise because the foundation has already been built. Instead of simply learning how to survive, now it's about learning how to dominate. That's exactly what Cincinnati hopes happens. Because if Fairchild takes another major step forward while Mims continues ascending, suddenly the Bengals aren't relying on isolated improvement. They're watching multiple young players grow together at the same time. And that's when continuity begins producing real results. This isn't simply about returning the same 5 starters. It's about returning the same 5 starters while several of them are still improving. That's a completely different conversation. Instead of asking whether this offensive line can survive, the better question may become just how high this group's ceiling actually is. And that question is exactly what training camp will begin answering. So now I want to hear from you, Bengals fans. Do you believe this offensive line is finally ready to become the best unit of the Joe Burrow era? Or do you think they still have something to prove before earning that respect? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments because I read them all, and I'd love to hear your take before training camp gets underway. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss any Bengals news throughout the season. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and as always, Hoo Day!